In the beginning of time, there was darkness. While I lay resting in my mother's womb, I soon became a part of the light world. Young in body, evil at heart. With little love around, I became aware of death. I should have been executed early in life for the crimes my mind commits daily.
What's up? This is Tony from the Tampa Morgue. What's up, Mr. Ed Webb?
What's up, Mr. Anderson?
I haven't heard that in a while, huh? I know the cameras are all fucked up. But Resurrection, right? Not the New Jersey one from Fort Lee, but the Florida one, man. You know, Resurrection, I mean, shit. That's a great
John Astle, Alex Marquez played on that record.
Oh, yeah. You had Mike from Asheron played on that record. He's on, R.I.P. also. And obviously John passed away, which is crazy. God, man, I remember the Embalmed Existence record. That was, I think that was 90s, 93, I want to say. But just, recorded that more sound, another one of those. They did a video, if you remember. It was for that, what was the Mistaken for Dead record? I think they did a video because Gus Rios was in that lineup. Jerry from Diabolic, Scott Patrick, but they did a video, I believe, for I would say Buried Alive, that track, and it was I think it actually was on Headbangers Ball at one time, which we were talking about Headbangers Ball earlier, but that was you had John Astle, and you had his Kevin. Kevin was in what, Epitaph, so you had Kevin and Epitaph, which that was, I forget what years. That was 90s to early 90s Epitaph, correct?
Yep. There was a bunch of bands like that.
Mark Good was in, we all know Mark Good. Mark Good actually played in Generic Christ at one time. He was in Epitaph. I think they only didn't do, I think they only put out a few demos, Epitaph, but they did eventually put out like a compilation with those demos. And the guy, Tony, the singer, he did Cynic eventually for a little bit of time. But I really liked Resurrection. And actually, I had talked to John. I think I had mentioned this to you. I've never really mentioned this to anybody. But it might have been like 2014, 2013. I had heard from John about trying out, actually, for Resurrection. They were talking about doing some touring. And I something didn't work out. Plus, I didn't really play bass. I know that's what they wanted. But, I always dug that record, Embalmed. And, I don't know, like I said, a band that I was listening to him today. I was like, damn, man, it's been a while since I've heard this band,
Same here, actually. On the down, I guess, I don't think I ever told you, but Dave, that played in Generic Christ, our Dave, he was doing some stuff with Resurrection. And same thing. He asked me if I wanted. Yeah. He asked me if I wanted to do the bass and vocals, and I was like, it's not my thing, man. I that's a unique vocal he has. I always said it was, and it was no disrespect, but the John Tardy Jr., was the way he was trying to do the trail offs like John did, and but it was unique. It was cool. John Astle was a cool guy. And I always dug those dudes. I went and saw them. They had a different singer. I saw him at the Crowbar. And it was okay. It was different. The singer was a little weird, but John crushed. I forget who they had on drums, and I don't think it was Scott Patrick on bass. I don't remember, but I know it was John Astle for sure because it was his band. But they were good.
I think the drummer might have been, was it Gabriel? I want to say, I hope I pronounced the name.
You know what?
Like
You're right. You're right. It was Gabriel. Yeah. Yep, it was Gabriel. You're right. Absolutely. So, and that's been so long since that show, just you playing them, that popped up in my head.
And Kevin, I think he did Adrift, right, with Jack Owen. I think he was doing.
He did.
It was totally not, like, it wasn't a metal band at all, but I know he was doing that with Jack. And yeah, I always dug Resurrection, and it's that whole time period of bands and stuff. But we were actually talking about earlier today about like Headbangers Ball. Like I know that video was on there, but it wasn't very often you saw those kind of videos. It was a lot of like. As they just filled it with shit you saw all throughout the day anyway. It was like you would see maybe 2 videos that night that were just really you just wouldn't get to see.
They didn't get put in the heavy rotation, but when they were doing a death metal segment, usually those were when you saw that that video for sure, 100%.
Yeah, 'cause I remember they were on there. And it was like I said, you would get those kind of bands every once in a while, but it would just suck because like we're saying, a lot of times they would roll in the same bands you would see throughout the day. That like I'm sorry, but who needed to see Metallica? Like
Yeah, one.
Metallica
How many
video
times?
over and
How
over
many
again?
times did we see one?
You saw it
Over?
throughout the daytime.
Yeah,
it was
man,
like,
it
fuck,
was.
man.
Yeah, it's just like we always talk about 98 Rock here. Whenever they play music, it's always the same. Disturbed, Five Finger Death Punch, blah blah blah. Something comes out and they'll play it a little bit, and then they always wear those songs out all day, 50 times a day. The new Godsmack, and it's like, oh my god, it sucked the first time I heard it. Now I'm hearing it 50 more times. That's why I stopped listening to the radio. Even
Even in the
even
80s, right? Some of
Sirius.
even the
Even
tapes you liked
Sirius,
back in the day, you would get tired of like when you listen to a tape, you'd like your favorite songs were always the ones they didn't play 16,000 times.
Right, and Sirius XM too, Liquid Metal, same thing. You want to listen to it, and you're like, oh, cool, and then all of a sudden you're like, dude, you just played this shit an hour ago. You have a whole fucking catalog that you can be playing from, and you keep playing the new shit that really most people really aren't listening to. It's just they run shit into the ground, and that's the problem. They just don't have any diversity when it comes to going old school, new school, old school. Playing a different style of music all the time. They just run in whatever's in rotation and keep it going. And I don't know. To me, that's why I was like, I dipped on my Sirius because I'm like, I'm done paying for something that I can just go listen to on Spotify over and over if I want.
Yeah, they have like that playlist on there or whatever. I mean, you can kind of find a stream of whatever without having to listen to like what the DJs put on. Because like you said, it's always I don't listen to much Sirius radio, especially the music shows. But yeah, it's definitely always like that. Um, but yeah, it's weird. I don't think MTV even plays any music videos anymore. I'm not sure because there's like in Europe here there is still like an MTV thing going on, but it's like a whole different deal. I don't even know half the bands they're playing on there. I mean, obviously they don't play anything really extreme or anything anymore. That's done with.
No, they went to like Road Rules and all that bullshit.
Yeah,
and they stopped
like,
playing.
What 15 and Pregnant or like just crazy shows all the fucking time.
Man.
It's like, man, it's.
Like I want to see six or seven people in a house, like being stupid. Like who gives a fuck, man?
I remember when that first started, though. I remember when that first started, and it was like a really big deal. Like what was it, The Real World or whatever? And
Real World and Road Rules. Those were the two
I was in high
that
school,
were.
and then just took over. I mean, but yeah, no, it's how is it now? What's going on with you over in Tampa? I know you're every time I talk to you, you're like working on a vehicle.
Yeah. No, my vehicle's good now, man. I'm happy. I got that shit fixed. Yeah, fuel pump went out this time, so that was an ordeal. But I don't send my shit out unless I have to. So sometimes you got to get down and dirty.
Well, you guys got see there's some storm brewing out there. Are they talking about you guys getting that? Obviously, I have my place over there too, so I'm kind of like wondering what's gonna.
We won't know until tomorrow-ish. They're saying tomorrow or Sunday morning. If it forms into anything and where it's going to go. And you know how that goes, man.
Did they give it a name already or?
No, not yet because it hasn't formed into a complete storm. But I think it's going to be an eye storm because that's the next one. And I like Dennis Phillips, man. He's the suspender guy here. And he was like, I don't know what it is with eye storms, but, Ian, Irma, when they hit, they were brutal. And they're like, oh man, I hope we don't have to worry about an ice storm. I'm like, man, it's coming off. the bottom of Cuba or somewhere it's coming from. I don't even know where it's at right now. I'm like, yeah, it's got to go through a bunch of mountains and shit before it even conforms. So, I don't worry until he says worry. I don't worry. So.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago. Remember it was like that storm, and I was there still, and that's what kind of made you worried. Like we didn't get smacked with like they thought we would, but we still got some decent weather out of it. But I remember like even like those guys who were usually positive were kind of like that morning they're like, well, we're kind of fucked. So you're like, great.
And then it turned.
And then it turned, and then someone else got
smashed.
whacked.
And it smashed Lakeland and Orlando. And what's crazy is we were actually considering going to Orlando because, we got new windows in my house. So my shit's rated for 155 mile an hour. So that's not my concern.
We'll find out next week.
Yeah. I mean, but, still, sometimes you just don't want to be in the direct line of fire.
No, yeah. And I mean, I do miss Florida right now a little bit. I know the winter's coming here, so I do miss it. But I will say, I don't miss that weather. But again, like we have a home there, so of course when the storms come, you're always watching, for this.
Oh yeah.
For these problems to happen, and I mean, like I said, I've been seeing a lot of home lately, actually, and it's crazy because as we get older, we see so many things happening. I mean, just from where we like hanging out at, like in that scene that we grew up in, I mean, I could just think of in the last few years, a handful of people that have passed away that we all, were friends with or hung out with. I remember my friend Bonnie from Sinfield Healing passed away. Jeff Parrish passed away from Diabolic, Blastmasters, Promethean Horde. Ralph, Santola, we talked about that. Death, Deicide, Obituary, just a handful of stuff. Devil's Highway. I believe Ralph even had something to do with Sebastian Bach actually at one time.
He did.
Yeah.
He sure did.
Tom Riley, who was a guy who anybody that hung out at the Brass Mug knew.
Staple.
I think it was last year.
And then of course, you got our little buddy there that
Ryan Bush.
Yep, Ryan Bush.
Ryan Bush, I felt bad for him because he had a big seizure problem. Anybody that knew Ryan, he passed away last month, I believe it was. And I've known Ryan for years. He used to come to all of our shows. I mean, he was one of those guys that some clubs would have the flickering lights, and then Ryan, it would just be too much for him because he had these bad seizures, and he would leave the hospital and the ambulance and stuff. Yeah, it's crazy. I remember when Ryan, somehow they gave him a driver's license. He was able to drive somehow. And remember I told you this? Man. And the same day he got in an accident down the street. They're like, there's an accident. It was Ryan Bush. I was like, fuck, man. Yep. But Ryan passed away. He meant well, man. He lost the battle, but he was dealing with that shit hard all the time. Zach from the Belching Penguins, that was a couple years ago, I believe, maybe a year ago. Steve from Black Witchery, Burning Inside. Cash from Hatchet Face and Death by Convictions. He used to also deal with the Rocky Horror Picture Show over in Tampa. My buddy's band, Level the Planet, the bass player JD passed away a couple weeks ago. Wow. And of course, something that we've been seeing a lot of the last 2 weeks, which is really, because you're at there, it sucks to see everybody that we know just like everyone's pretty crushed right now because, as you know, Alexis passed away, which they'll actually be holding something for her at the Brass Mug, I think Saturday, the 26th. I think Pagan Faith is playing and Thrash Attack. But it sucks, man, because I see everyone is just it's hard. As you start getting older, whenever you see people are are gone, it's just really overwhelming. And I felt really bad. I saw a lot of people sad this week that I know, and it's definitely sucks. I mean, it's just something we deal with, and we're starting to see more and more of it. And and I just mentioned some people. I'm sure there's a lot more people. These are just people that I can think of off the top of my head. But man, it's as you know, Ed, when you get older, man, it's like you just don't know, right?
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, obviously, this has been it's a rough year for me because in March I lost my mom, and
right before tour too, you had to go on the road with that going on.
Right after we got back from South America, and the thing is she was kind of sick around Christmas time, and these fucking doctors, they absolutely suck, man. They destroyed her. But like when I went to Europe for that 5 weeks, I was concerned, man, because I kept thinking, man, I'm going to get a phone fucking call and I'm going to have to come home. you know, that because I just watched her with her, man, and nobody would do anything for her. It was just terrible, man. And they just kept telling her it was in her fucking head. And obviously it wasn't because, you know, she's gone.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you know, and when you're out on the road, the last thing you want to ever get is a phone call about somebody, you know. And while I was in South America, of course, my wife had called me, you know, through FaceTime or whatever, and told me my dog was, you know, on the way out, and that she was actually getting ready to take him to the to vet to put him to sleep. And then she called me back and was like, he went on the couch, he started to seize out, and he just died right here on our couch. So, you know, here I'm gone. This is my dog of 11 years, and, you know, my buddy, and I'm fucking in South America. I don't even get to see him being buried. None of it. I don't get to say goodbye. So, you know, shit like that, man, it sucks. And, you know, to be honest with you, I like my dog more than I like most fucking humans. So, yeah.
But as you get older, we all see it happening more, and it just sucks. And, you know, I really...
Yeah, my son just told me today, he called me while I was at work and told me that one of the WWE guys, Bray Wyatt, apparently died. I didn't even see it. I was like, man, he's like, yeah, man, apparently he had a heart attack. And you told me this morning that Terry Funk died. So I was like, holy shit,
I saw that
that's
too.
2 WWE guys.
I'm not a big wrestling guy. When I was a kid, I liked it, but I knew who Terry Funk was, and I knew that his dad was a wrestler, I believe, and his brother, and, you know, he'd been around for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, we're going to see a lot more of this, and it just sucks. I mean, especially, you know, when I see a bunch of people that we know, and, you know, we all have, you know, known through the years, and it's just a devastating thing to a lot of people.
Well, and, you know, I mean, we knew somebody when he passed, and it's been, you know, many years now, but still, I think of him all the time. You know, Fred Gray from End of the Rope. You know, he was a good friend of mine, man. And, you know, when that happened, that kind of hit a little hard. So yeah, I've seen a lot of, you know, a lot of people, that, you know, 1 minute they're here and, you know, the next minute you're reading about them. So yeah, it sucks, man. And you're right. We're getting to the age where, all our heroes are about to just, you know, start kicking it. You know, when Ozzy kicks it, it's over. You know what I mean?
I know that they've been saying that, you know, yeah, he's looking rough. I mean, and of course, how do you not love Ozzy growing up listening to Sabbath and just Ozzy in general? You know, yeah, and it's just a bummer. But we know it's, you know, I mean, I really, like I said, this week was kind of tough because I saw a lot of people I know hurting, and you know, it's cool. And if people can get up there, I think it's Saturday night, the 26th. I'm a day ahead always because I'm in Eastern Europe, but they are doing the celebration of life for Alexis.
For Alexis McCabe.
Yeah, so it's, you know, I know that is definitely something that's really important to everybody that's involved. Because I know, like I said, you could just see it. It's just been totally like, just, you know, everyone's taking it pretty hard, and I get it. Yeah, so, you know, that's going on. And I saw that the Gorilla Biscuits are playing at the Brass Mug. I don't know if you saw that in November.
I did.
Yeah, November 6th. And then I saw there's another. I need to get more concert dates so I can like actually say them because I don't really know all the. I saw a couple shows. I saw like Cryptopsy's coming to the Mug, I think, with Abysmal Dawn. And Hate. Actually, I saw Hate actually in Lithuania a few years ago at one of the local clubs here. But yeah, eventually I need to keep in touch with the shows so I can actually know what I'm talking about with what's coming up in the area.
In fairness, you're not exactly here, so
in Tampa, yeah. So
you know, it's a little harder to keep up with shows when you're not exactly here to go to them.
Yeah, no, exactly. You know, I see it, but I do see, like I said, I do see some stuff. You know, what's going on, and I saw. And one thing I was going to talk to you about is, you know, me and you, we were talking about this with Pat, actually. And anybody who listened to the Pat from the Hell Witch interview from last week, Pat's a great guy, man. It's funny because we could have talked to him for hours. There was even questions after I talked to him. I'm like, man, I didn't ask him about this. Like, I know Frank, you know, Watkins played in the band for a minute on one of the demos. Like, there was just stuff that I didn't really get to. It was just, you know, Pat was just so easy to talk to that it was just kind of like a hangout. It was definitely a good time, and that's available pretty much. I think it's on YouTube and Spotify and all that stuff. But we really appreciate him coming on. But we were talking about physical products and stuff like that, and some bands like I just saw this week I was seeing like Chris from Swamp Tooth. They're putting out physical CDs, and it's good to always see that when bands are still doing that, and a lot of bands still do that because it's so important. And one thing is we were talking about like a physical CD was you would go to a record store, and if you didn't totally know the act, you would look at the cover and look at the artwork, and me and Ed, we're always talking about like great covers and stuff like that. And there's just, so many like awesome album covers. And I think with the awesome album cover, it doesn't even mean that like, oh, this is what I think is like the top album cover. It's about when you look at it, the kind of that vibe it gives you. Correct?
Absolutely. I can tell you from experience that I think it was Turtles Records here, and I can't remember the other Tracks. I think it was Tracks. They would always have stuff in the bargain bin, and I would walk over there and I would be like, what is this? And Pat brought up something about Sodom when he was talking about, his demo sounding like Sodom.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like, so, but when I picked up In the Sign of Evil and I looked at it, it had the hooded guy on the thing. And, I was like, holy shit, this looks evil. So, put it in the basket. Creator, Flag of Hate was one of them. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it sounds evil. So I put it in the thing. Celtic Frost, Morbid Tales, same thing. The covers were so weird because, like everybody uses weird visuals, like Celtic Frost always did. And even now with the Triptychon, he used Geiger. And so, you looked at an album cover or you looked at the name of the band. It was like the twofold, you know what I mean? But for me, the album cover was like a really, really big part of why we bought records because, I know we talked about it, the giant sleeves for the CDs that we would hang on our walls.
Yeah, the long boxes.
Yep. We would put them on our walls, and sometimes that had artwork that wasn't actually included in the actual CD, which was killer. Because it was a promo piece. So, yeah, the album cover was definitely, one of the selling points, especially for death metal. You know what I mean? Most bands in the early days, like Motley Crue and all that, they didn't care about album covers. They, they went off of just whatever they were doing that they were going to sell records.
And there were some older bands that had some like Blue Oyster Cult, the Agents of Fortune. That was a great record cover, I thought. That was just a cool record cover. But there was a lot, like you said, like there was, if you look at Too Fast for Love, what is it? It's
it's just like fucking somebody sitting in leather pants with their hands, in their pockets. So but then you look in the back, there were people that or bands that literally did put the time in. Iron Maiden was one of them. Judas Priest did it. There were a Dio. Dio had his little gimmick guy, the
Randy Barrett did a Holy Diver cover, and that's like
and that was a great looking cover. I remember I knew who Dio was from Black Sabbath, but I didn't know Dio had made his own band, So I remember going into a store and I saw Dio, and I'm like, when I flipped it over, I saw Ronnie James Dio. But when I flipped it over, the album cover, I was like, this has to be good. You know what I mean? And I bought it. And of course, we know anything Dio ever put out was killer. So yeah, it was definitely covers are a big part of buying records. I think still to this day.
I'm big on that, and I think that's what total nightmare with the AI stuff, because I just think people aren't even going to try anymore. It's going to become basically a fucking joke, I love look at the Autopsy, I love the old Autopsy covers. We talked about Severed Survival before. There was actually two covers to that. There was the uncensored one that Kent Matthew did, and there was the censored one that Kent Walker did. But Severed Survival was a great cover. Awakened by Gore, also Autopsy, which was done by Putrid, who actually did, I think he was doing skateboard decks at one time, actually, and he also did stuff for Acid Witch, Hooded Menace, God.
Yeah, well, we talked this the Severed Survival record when it came with the dual cover.
Yep.
With the stretch,
the states wouldn't release. I don't think the states would release the stretch. I think the problem was, if I remember correctly,
when I first bought it, it was the stretch one.
Yeah.
I had to buy the second one to get the second. I had to buy it again to get the other cover. So they did originally, and then something happened where
because the uncensored one, Kent Matthew, he also did, he did a shitload of stuff actually, but he also did the Eyes of Horror from Possessed, which I thought that was a great cover. That was, the Combat records. That was the Eyes of Horror was great. He was also involved in that. It's a trying. You had Overkill always had killer artwork.
I look at dudes. So, you know who Vincent Locke is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he did all
the Cannibal Corpse. Yeah,
every Cannibal Corpse, and those are again. If you were looking for an album cover, if you were looking to find out if something was brutal, and you looked at that album cover, any of them from Eaten Back to Life all the way to to Wretched Spawn, Kill, all of them, every single album cover.
Tunes of the Mutilated. He also did the artwork for Aqua Teen Hunger Force, believe it or not. He did some artwork for that. Yeah, he also had something to do with that. Yeah,
he sure did.
He did a lot of stuff. That Malevolent Creation or Retribution cover I like, which is Dan Seagrave, and Dan Seagrave did a shitload of stuff.
Now again, you're talking. Dude, every band that I can think of under the sun in the beginning, Benediction, Dismember, Entombed, Gore Guts. I think Hypocrisy, Malevolent Creation for sure, Monstrosity, that Imperial Doom was done by Dan Seagrave. Morbid Angel.
He did the Altars.
Yep, he did, and the Gateways to Annihilation.
Yep.
Nocturnus, he did the Key. You got Pestilence. But Suffocation was definitely...
Did you mention Imperial Doom?
I did.
Imperial Doom, okay.
Yeah.
He did Imperial Doom, yep.
So, and he did the Vader, the Ultimate Incantation record. So he did some sick records. There's a shit ton more, but when you think about the most of those that I mentioned, we owned. I owned pretty much Carnage, Decrepit Birth. I owned all of those, records. And I'm like, it's hard to believe that one guy did all of those artists. Most of them multitude of times. So, he's a great artist, man. And he was very, he was kind of eclectic in the way he did it. You know what I mean? Cause like you would think, there's a Dan Seagrave cover. And then all of a sudden you'd look at another one. And you're like, holy shit, that doesn't look like the other one. So yeah, he's a great artist, man.
No, definitely. There's even covers that weren't art that I liked. Like if you look at Deceased, right? Deceased was a band. They had Luck of the Corpse, right? That was taken from the Black Sabbath 1963 movie. I thought that was a cool cover. But we talk about I even liked some of the stuff like the old black and white art demos that basically looked like drawings off your notebooks in high school. I always thought, back when if you had a guy in the band who knew how to draw, he was pretty much going to be the guy doing the shit, Even, there's a lot of those kind of covers that I always dug. Like I remember Ripping Corpse had some killer demo covers. Back to Deceased, you had the Evil Side of Religion, which was cool. But that was that actually was not even an artwork. That was just a photo. That was a photo from Night of the Living Dead. Because I think Deceased did that. A couple of their albums covers were movie photos and stuff, but. There was a lot of those old, the back of the demo. I felt like back then you can kind of get away with getting covers that you could probably take a movie picture easier than you could now if you were going to pull something off a movie. Maybe I'm wrong.
And I don't think anybody was trying to sue you back then. Nowadays, people want to get you for copyrights and everything else. So.
Yeah, exactly. But like I said, Ripping Corpse's artwork. They had Rob Leacock who did their artwork, and they had, and he also, if you remember, he did stuff for Revenant too, I believe.
Revenant, that was a great album cover too.
Yeah, Revenant. I remember Revenant used to have a mailing address when you back for the tape trading days. You would go. It was like Maywood, New Jersey. They were a Jersey band, you know, and
Yep.
they had their vocalist Henry. Eventually, he was with Regurgitation. I think he did live stuff with Whiplash. Yeah, but they were. I liked Revenant. What was it? Prophecies of a Dying World. Yeah, that was. What year did that come out? Do you remember? Was that 93 or 92?
It was early 90s, so it was probably 91, 92, you know.
Yeah.
Hold me to that, but it was just that time frame when and the thing is Revenant didn't sound like every other band that was coming out. You know, they had their own kind of sound, which was a Jersey thing, because Ripping Corpse sounded like nobody.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a bunch of bands that were coming out of Jersey that, you know.
And Revenant, you still hear the name come up sometimes because, you know, like you had Tim Scott played bass for Hate Plow in the 90s. You had these guys, but like I didn't know, like Revenant, they were, I haven't listened to them in a while, but I really need to check them out again because I always did dig that. And like, you know, Ripping Corpse, when you had with the Rob Leacock artwork, you know, I don't know, it was just good shit. I mean, Asheron too. I liked Asheron's artwork. I liked what they had, the Rebirth album.
Yep.
You know, that was some killer artwork for, I think it was Timu Wurs or something like that. That's the problem, is some of these names we might be saying wrong with the artists but just the way it is. But yeah, that was the killer album cover. And I think he actually did artwork for Vincent Crowley's the solo release he did, the Vincent Crowley band I believe Beyond Asheron. I believe he did the artwork for that also.
Oh, that's killer. Yeah, I got a guy for you that has done a multitude of records. Almost did. We tried to get this guy to do the Massacre record, Back from Beyond. We tried, but Ed Repka. You know, we're talking Megadeth, Evil Dead.
Death. He did like what? He did.
He
Scream,
did
Bloody
everything
Gore.
from the first three.
The first three. Yeah.
Yep. He did Nuclear Assault, Game Over. Let's see. He did. I think he did one of the Toxic Holocaust records.
Yes,
I remember
yes,
that was a big thing. He did the Sanctuary stuff because he loved them in the beginning. Possessed. Definitely did he did Massacre. Like I said, we tried, but I don't remember. Somebody put the kibosh on it. I know he did Circle Jerks, which was crazy to me when I saw that, and I found out it was Ed Repka.
Because Ed Repka was actually, so I had heard that he was actually more of a punk fan than a metal fan.
He was. It's just for some reason all the metal bands wanted him, because I think he did the Piece of Time record from Atheist, which I always looked at that album cover was like, you know, it's as you know, when you look at it back in the day, I was like, it's okay. But now when I look at it and I know it's Ed Repka, I was like, man, it makes it like it's a killer artwork. He also did the Dark Angel, which, you know, I'm a huge fan of Dark Angel, man. So, you know, I mean, the fact that, and let's not forget our boys in Gruesome. They grabbed him up to do their records. So, you know,
Violence, he did records for, obviously, Peace Cells.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And one of your favorites, he did the Wrathchild America too. So, yep. So, you know, definitely a crushing dude when it comes to artwork. Lot of bands, just like Dan Seagrave. You know, you don't realize it until you start looking and you're like, holy shit, man, this dude did a lot of.
Well, that's like Kent Matthew I mentioned earlier, dude. He did Slaughter in the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
He did he did, what else did he do? I believe he did Twisted into Form, I believe, from Forbidden. You know, so I mean, he's done. It's funny because you don't realize how many album covers these guys did. Another one was, you remember Black Witchery, of course, Upheaval of Satanic Might. The thing with that guy, Chris Moyen, was, if I'm saying his name right, he also did a band called, he did Crucifier's artwork, Abigail, Archgoat, but he did a band called Beast Style Mockery. And I know I'm not sure if Ed would totally dig it, because I know I've told you about this band before. But Gospel of the Insane is a great fucking record.
I've heard it.
Yeah, it's a great record. Father in Heaven, and all that stuff. It's got some killer tracks on it. He did the artwork for that. He's another artist who I think is killer. Man, that's the thing, is there's all different. You know, you look like, if you look, there's all different styles. You can kind of tell, like Ed Repka, you can kind of see it, like, and like we were saying earlier, it doesn't even have to be. There's album covers that aren't even artwork, to be honest. Like there was the Dwarves, Blood, Guts, and Pussy, that came out on Sub Pop. Like I love that cover, but I'm also a Dwarves fan, as we all know.
Right.
Like, the Free Cocaine cover, with all the 86, 88 demos on it, I really dug. How could you not dig the King Diamond covers, right? The Abigail.
Oh, yeah.
And Fatal Portrait's a beautiful cover. It's a great album cover. I mean, it's, and now it's like we deal with, we've dealt with, we deal with artists. We pretty much deal with the same guys. We deal with, Ipiot, from 5 milligrams. I hope I'm saying that right. We'll get him on the show and figure if I'm in butchering his name or not. And I've used, and Mark Cooper, another Florida artist, I've used a shitload of times. Yep. Yeah, he's, killer. But, back then, I don't even know what you would pay these guys. Like, look at Obituary's cover, for, you had Slowly We Rot, which was, Rob Mayworth, I believe it was. Now, Cause of Death, right? I was going to ask you about this. So Michael Whelan, that's the flip-flop, right? That was the Beneath the Remains, Cause of Death story that we told.
Correct.
He did. How did that go? Do you remember?
So, I don't think it was Beneath the Remains. I think it was Arise. It was the Arise cover because those two came out the same year. So, Cause of Death and Arise had come out the same year.
I believe it was. But I'm mixed up on it. I have to double check this. I'm not sure, but I know what you're saying. Though I know
it might be. It might be, but I thought it was I thought it was Arise. But obviously one of us will be right, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, that would have flip flop. But just looking at those covers, I don't think even Beneath the Remains, neither one of those covers, Arise or Beneath the Remains, would have worked for Obituary. You know what I mean? That Cause of Death with the cocoon and all that. Perfect. That was legendary. That album just was. It had to be like that, for sure. But yeah, I mean, that dude also did Soulfly and Demolition Hammer, so he had a lot of, big bands under his belt too. And it's like, if you don't know, it's like who, like Ed Repka, Dan Seagrave, Vincent Locke. Those are names you know. Here's another one for you. He did a Diabolic cover. Joe Petagno. He did all the Angel Corpse record covers, which is crazy. He did an Autopsy cover. Marduk, Motorhead. He did the Overkill cover for Motorhead. So, I mean, Joe Petagno, when I remember when the guys came to me and said, hey, he's going to do it's a Supreme Evil record. He's like, we're getting this guy to do it. And I looked who it was. I said, the guy that did the Motorhead cover? And they're like, yeah. I go, he's going to fucking do a Diabolic cover? Because we weren't like a big band. We were, people were starting to know who we were. But he did it, man. And, when I look at that record, I'm like, that's a good album cover. Different, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I have the actual LP of it, luckily. So, it always looks better when it's bigger. But yeah, he was a good artist, man.
It's funny because look at Deicide's first cover. I love it. And what is it? I heard that, I believe that medallion that you see on the album cover, I had heard about this. I think that was picked up at a flea market or something like this, but what the hell do I know? I could be totally wrong. But I believe they still have that actual medallion from that cover from the first Deicide record. And I even remember like the Once Upon a Cross cover, from Trevor Brown, like, that's a cover I just don't forget for some reason,
right.
That's just one that sticks in my head, and that was like, 94, 95 time period. In like Tampa wise or Florida wise, I got to say, like, I know Drew and Lord went with Putrid on I think it was the Hymns of the Wicked record, which, I mean, that's a killer cover on that CD LP. And then, I mean, there were so many. I'm trying to think of who else. We thought Mark Cooper's done a bunch of work for bands. God, there's so many killer covers. Especially that's what I'm afraid of. Like I remember the period when internet first came out. Like we started like getting online, and I was talking about this with my buddy Darius today. Actually, like, do you remember like how bad? Like there was. It seems like album artwork got really bad for a nice little period of time because people were just pulling shit off the whatever they could find. On the internet, and like it was kind of. I don't know. It just got really weird for a while, I thought.
I think what it was is a lot of artists started to the cost of what they wanted. Because I can tell you that there were a couple people that when some artwork was pushed around and I heard how much they were asking, I was like, holy shit, so, and I can only imagine as you get bigger in status as a band, they go, oh, you want me to do your album cover? It's going to be this much. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I look at bands of the old days, and I think some of them tried to be a little more simplistic, kind of like I'm trying to think of something old, like Master of Puppets. When you saw that album cover, it wasn't, you were like, oh, but then over time, it became more than when you first looked at it.
Then you saw that piece of shit black album cover, and you're like, what
yeah,
the
well,
fuck
that
is this fucking
yeah.
like, what is this, man?
Well, let's see. Don Brodegam is the guy who did those records, both of them. He did Master.
He did the Black album too?
Yeah, he did the Black album. So he shit the bed. He did okay with Master, but he shit
Black
the bed.
album, man, I feel like anybody could have done. I don't know. It's like,
but
fucking...
the same dude did Among the Living, and that was a cool cover.
That's a great cover. Yeah.
That was a great cover. But then he also did State of Euphoria, and I'm thinking, do you just do one great record and then shit the bed, or because State of Euphoria was kind of a goofy cover.
Yeah, you're right. No, yeah.
And he also did goofy covers, Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue. So it's like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? So sometimes it comes to a point to where artists don't go, man, I got a certain standard I got to stay by here. They just fucking, Motley Crue fucking pay the money. So, and dude, Dr. Feelgood is a goofy fucking cover. Like,
yeah, no, it is definitely. I mean, yeah, I know, definitely. It's and that's one thing that was so cool when you started getting to more extreme music. The covers were just, just better.
Yeah,
I mean,
that different.
And even like we said, Tampa had the same thing. You had what was it? Brutality had the Screams of Anguish album cover, which was cool. And then, of course, When the Sky Turns Black, it was done by Michael Stanfield, who was also a bass player in a band from Tampa called, which you may know, Opposite Earth.
Opposite Earth. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, so I mean, you had there's just a shitload. I mean, like we said, Obituary, Deicide, they just rolled out killer covers. I don't know what those guys were getting paid.
I remember when people were saying, "Hey, you should get a cover done by Necrolord." I'm like, "What's a Necrolord?" And then I looked at the At the Gates cover and was like, "Oh shit," And then I found out
what they were getting for covers back then. Like,
I don't know, but I think Necrolord was doing more of the European stuff because I think he did the Dissection record. That's the Bringer of Storm of the Light's Bane. And that was a weird cover. Remember that cover? Yeah. So, and that was pretty intricate for back then. And he did Witchery, not Black Witchery, but Witchery. Yeah. And he also did Bathory, which I thought, what's his name, was doing all his own stuff. But and then of course, a lot of these guys, like Black Dahlia Murders had their album covers done by like 5 different people that I've seen, and I'm going, man. And all their album covers are like kind of like Malevolent or Suffocate. They're all intricate but different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know it was it's not as fancy maybe as the later albums, but I always dug. Maybe it's when I was a kid. Maybe it was because of Kim Seaborn was the artist. It was the Grim Reaper covers for Fear No Evil.
Oh yeah,
Hell. I thought Fear No Evil is just a killer cover. And still to this day, like when I take it out of the 12-inch, I'm like, that is just cool artwork. I mean, it fit. It actually fit. It's a great record. It fit.
A good record too. Well, I mean, Grim Reaper, or you can go one step more. The same time period was Halloween. Their album covers were like.
They just played in St. Pete this year, man. I was fucking bummed I was not there for that.
Yeah, it was a little expensive, man. What I heard, it was like super expensive.
Lucifer and Cestus is a beautiful cover, man. That's still to me one of my favorite covers from that time. But that was my Polish artist who did that one, who does the Behemoth covers, the Carpathian Forest covers. Grawl, I believe his name is. Sorry if I'm butchering anybody's name, but that's how it goes.
It's a Jersey thing. We butcher everybody's name.
Thing. But, and of course, like Iron Maiden, like you brought up before, like amazing covers. They had so much amazing covers, that band. Like,
well, do you know the guy? Do you know who the guy who invented Eddie?
Derek?
Derek Riggs. You got it.
Yeah,
man. It's crazy to think that a guy just drew something and was like, I don't know, guys, what do you think? And they were just, and now he's one of the most iconic
I met him
mascots
last year,
of metal. I
met him last year. Yeah, cool.
I mean, when you think of mascots, right, of metal, you got Eddie,
Charlie, Vic
Rattlesnake. Yep. Yeah. So, it's crazy how you like something morphs from just a picture on a cover to it becoming something that appears on stage when you're watching these guys live. I mean, seeing Iron Maiden when Eddie would come out, I remember the first time, you know what that was like. You were like, what the fuck am I watching here, man? This is awesome. And,
it still comes out too. I saw them
and
this year.
And Bruce Dickinson runs around and they have the whole stage thing set up for it. And, so, and it's just like King Diamond. He brings out Grandma. When we saw him, in
Orlando,
yeah, man. Remember, he played the new song that they haven't released that record yet, and
I keep on wondering when that record's going to come out, because it's been a while now that we've all, it just feels like I can't wait till it comes out. It's been a couple of years when they released that track 2 years ago. You thought it would be maybe a year, but I don't know. Maybe there'll be a surprise in October or something. That we'll get something from him.
Yeah, we ain't getting any younger, King. Come on, man.
No, definitely not, man.
I know he had that run with Merciful Fate, which I was upset that they didn't play in Florida, and I almost went to Georgia to see him. Me and Bryce were going to go, but when you break it down, hotel, flights, all that shit, it's just like fuck, man. You're like, well, I get to see.
Tickets were for that? Do you?
It wasn't the tickets that were that expensive. They were like $60. But when you got to fly in, stay in a hotel, rent a car, that's where you're at $500, $600, $700, man, for a weekend. And then it was like food, everything else, man. So yeah, come on, King, put out your record.
Yeah, you're right. It gets really expensive. I know, like even. Everything has raised in price though, because we would always go to those horror conventions and all these things, man, and it just gets more expensive, and that's just, I don't see that's going to change anytime soon, really. It seems to be the way. I mean,
no, because the more it creeps up and people still go and pay, they'll just keep doing it. And it's just like food. If people stopped going to Walmart, if the food crept up too far, they would be forced to bring their prices down. It's the same thing. People just pay it because they're so intrigued by whatever it is that's at Comic-Con or, the horror convention you're talking about, or the, the thing that I'll go up to for. Is that the same thing, the horror convention?
Well, there's Spooky Empire, which I love Spooky Empire. It's just, you could tell now it was a lot different, like price-wise, which I don't blame Petey for, who runs it at all, because I just know that everything has gone up. I'm sure the cost of the hotel has gone up, the cost of the guests, and he does bring, I would love to get Petey on this show actually one day from Spooky Empire, because he brings some great stuff there, some great actors, it gets bigger and bigger each year. Because I was going, when I first started going to Spooky Empire, it may have been like, I don't know, like quarter of the size it is now. It was not a very big event. It was like, it has grown so much. I mean, we didn't go this year because obviously we were in Europe, but me and my wife both enjoy going.
I saw that a couple people we knew went, and they were, if I remember correctly, they were not impressed. I mean, I think some of the people that were there and what they were charging for pictures or autographs were like...
Oh, yeah. Well, what was it? I think I told you this. I had heard that one of the girls from the Stranger Things, the main, what is it, Miley Brown, her name is, I believe?
Yes.
I think that's
Millie,
her name.
Millie Brown. Millie Bobby Brown. Yes. The girl from Stranger Things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was outrageous.
Like $300 for a picture with her. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, man. I mean, what the hell is that? But that's, maybe that's the way it is now. But the event itself, I think it's very cool, the whole setup. And it's definitely like, it's a good time, man. I take my kids now and my kids, they're younger, but they like it. They're just kind of intrigued by everything they see there. Everyone's in costumes and all that stuff.
Sure. It's still, my kids don't give a shit. So
Yeah,
I'm not taking them anywhere.
Yeah, my kids are all into the Halloween thing, so we got
my daughter's lucky I take her to school. How's that?
This is your last
Appreciate
year for doing
that.
But you're going to miss it one day.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you're going to miss that one day.
Yeah, man. Well, when Bryce went to college, that was like a shitty year for me, man, because he was my buddy for, all these years. And then he left, and it was like, I come out to an empty bedroom, and, it was like, man, this sucks.
See, I had my kids older, so I'll probably kick the bucket by the time they're in their, by the time they get to that stage of, driving me crazy. But yeah, no, and you're doing what now? So you've been doing you're preparing for the Monstrosity album, correct?
Yes. Yep. Monstrosity record going September, the end of September, do vocals and some leads.
You guys are going to Morris Sound, correct?
Yes, sir. Jim Morris. Will be killer. That's a bucket list item. I've never been to, I've been to Morris Sound. I've never recorded at Morris Sound. So, it's something that I always said, well, it'd be killer to do, but most of the time it cost a fortune. But they moved literally a couple minutes from my house. So, which is awesome. And yeah, it should be a killer time. And we're also going to Mexico in September. I think the show is September 9th. We leave the 8th. So yeah, we're playing the 9th down in Mexico. So that'll be killer.
Are you guys headlining that?
I believe so. I don't know.
Nice. You go for what, 2? You guys are flying in on, what is it? Like
fly in,
2-day?
We leave Friday, play Saturday, fly home Sunday. Yeah, just a little trip, man. Nice. Mexico, every time I've been to Mexico, it's been nothing short of amazing. It's, just great
what
people.
Is this shit you tell me about the bootleg in there? And I definitely I always find this very interesting.
Yeah, so we don't, Lee, hit me because usually when we go to the airport, Lee brings this giant thing and it looks like a body bag. I mean, it's huge. It's a fucking body bag, and he stuffs all the stuff in there. A lot of times if we're going somewhere like on tour in Europe, he had the merch made there. But if we're flying in for a show like to Chicago or somewhere, we'll all put merch in our suitcases, each one of us, so that take the weight off, because you know how fucking heavy merch is. So when we got to the airport, when we were going to Mexico the first time, I asked him, why aren't you bringing no merch? He goes, dude, there's bootleggers everywhere selling the shit for a fraction of the price. And sure enough, when I went out there, there was a dude selling 3 different Monstrosity shirts, and they were hacks, you know what I mean? But I think they were the equivalent to $15, or something like that. They were terrible. But if you want a Monstrosity shirt, you can go buy one out there. Why would you pay $30 when you can pay $15 for a hack job? When I remember when I went outside, this dude had mugs, and he gave me one. He's like, "Oh, you in the band here?" He gave me one. It's a coffee mug. I got it somewhere. I got it in here somewhere. And a dude made hoodies for the last record. He made with the album cover.
Oh, you told me about this.
That's and right. He gave us all hoodies. He just walked in and gave us all hoodies, and Lee was just like, he was, you could tell. I mean, we didn't pay for him, so there was that. But I will tell you this: South America is the same way, because we came out of a venue in Chile, and I was walking back to the hotel with Mark Van Erp, and anybody who knows Mark Van Erp, especially from the old days, not a guy to fuck with. But this dude was standing outside bootlegging our shit. Mark grabbed one right out of the dude's fucking hand and said, "Fuck you," and he wore it on stage that night. So that's how you fucking do it. You swipe it from the fucking dude, and then you wear it in front of him. When we came out after the show, he was there. He fucking threw his shit in a case and closed it and sat on the case so that, or kind of huddled around so we couldn't. Because Lee was like, "I'm gonna grab a fucking shirt too." But yeah, it happens. I mean, it happened in Argentina. We went into the club with Massacre, and I remember looking, and I'm like, what the fuck is that, dude? And it was the Inhuman Condition cover, but black and white. I think it was that one. I have that too, because the guy that was our liaison down there, I'm like, dude, what the fuck? He goes, dude, that's what they do. I'm like, well, that's fucked up. And so he went up there and he goes, hey, dude, this is the singer from Massacre. Give him that. So he gave it to me. So I was like, all right, well, I guess he didn't sell it. So at the end of the day, I got it. But, that's what they do. They fucking, there's no law, especially in Mexico, there's no laws to prevent it. So unfortunately,
we've always seen bootlegging. I remember going to Clash of the Titans at the Garden in New York, and of course they had
out in the parking lot,
the
$10
$10 Clash of the Titans t-shirts, and then when the cops would come to bust them, you would find you would see bags of t-shirts tossed to the side, because they took off. But I remember as a kid, I did. Unfortunately, I did buy one of those Clash of the Titan bootlegs as a kid. I think I was I don't know, maybe 14, 13. But I did grab one. But I remember that. And that was kind of common. I think now I don't really see it as much, though. I will say, when I went to go see Alice Cooper, probably, I think you were with me, maybe actually. It was Alice Cooper. The crew was saying it was their last tour. There was bootleg shirts out there too, I believe, which I haven't seen that too much at Florida shows in a bunch of years. But I did.
It depends. It depends. Sometimes you get people for big shows, especially at the amphitheater, because they don't charge you to park. So, some of the bigger places we're talking about, especially up north or the Lakeland Civic Center back in the day, you had to pay to park. So most people weren't going to pay and then walk around and try to sell shirts. I don't know, maybe they would, but, I didn't see too much of it. I seen it at the amphitheater a couple times. Hey, dude, you want to buy a shirt? And he had a whole stack of them in a fucking basket that he was walking around with. And I was like, no, I'm good. I didn't want to buy a shirt in there, and I'm sure as hell not buying one out here.
I bet you they made a killing, though, those parking lots, because, I said, I saw some of my buddies dish out the money for it, We, back then, we didn't have too much money. Your money was for, cigarettes at that time period, which were, not even, they were, what, $2 and change at that time period. Now I think I haven't smoked in almost 20 years a cigarette, but I believe that they're, $10 a pack now.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about Florida. I know New York City was really bad. Last time I was in New York, it was really expensive.
They're expensive everywhere, and to me, it's just such a useless, crutch. Cigarettes. because I watch dudes literally put one out, and they're fucking lighting another one, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, you're not even giving your fucking lungs a chance to breathe, man. You're just fucking taxing yourself. Yeah, no, cigarettes suck.
I remember, I think even the guys who back when we were kids, those comedians, I know Dennis Leary used to smoke. I think he quit, and then Dice Clay carries a cigarette now but doesn't smoke it.
Well,
so
you remember Dennis Leary would put the cigarette on the fucking stool and talk to it and do the jokes. So
No Cure for Cancer. That was that.
Yeah, a great fucking thing, man.
Yeah,
these guys, because they know they're getting older and they know that their health isn't what it used to be. I've never, ever smoked a cigarette in my life, ever.
Really? Never?
My parents did it growing up, and it was such a disgusting thing to see.
I smoked them for a long time. When I was growing up, never. I was very young now, but...
Nope, and then my dad just one day quit, just quit, cold turkey. This was I'm done. And then when my mom first found out she had heart issues, she quit, and God, they didn't smoke for fucking 20 years. I know my dad was probably way long. It's probably been 40 years since my dad smoked a cigarette. Don't care, never did. He just, back when they were young, he said we did it because it was fucking cool. That was the cool thing to do. You fucking hang out there with your white t-shirt.
Everyone's
outsider shit.
I was about to say the outsider days. I remember when I was a kid, everybody smoked. It was I remember there was they were giving away cigarettes. You would go to the store when I was in Florida, you would go to Circle K, and someone would be like, hey, if you fill out this form, we'll give you a free pack of Camels or something like that. But I said,
Like
I quit that
like
a long
literally,
time ago. But
it's like go ahead and just inject cancer into me instead of fucking
Camel Wides too. You remember they were like the bigger
Wides.
version of the cigarette. Like if it wasn't big enough, it was like a little bit bigger. Yeah,
I remember going there. Can I get a pack of Marble Light menthols? I'm like, oh my god, dude, menthol. What do you? I mean, shit.
I used to like Newport. I think had like fiberglass in them or some shit. They used to say.
I can remember going when we would go to Virginia, drive through there up to go up north or come down. We would always stop at the Marlboro plant where they made the cigarettes, and we would do the factory tours. And I would be like, you could smell the actual tobacco and like how it's being processed, and you see it. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, growing up, you know, I was smoking weed as a kid, and I'm thinking that comes right off a plant, and you break it up and put it into a paper. There's no fucking manufacturing anything. Like when I saw the different stages of how they make tobacco into a cigarette and all the fucking fillers and shit they put in there, like at what point they should make everybody walk through there? Because if you walk through there and you leave and the first thing you want to do is smoke a cigarette, then you deserve cancer. Because I'm telling you, when you see what they do, it's kind of like watching a doctor do some sort of nasty surgery that you shouldn't be doing. And you go through there and you watch the doctor do it and you're like, man, that looks pretty cool. I should go get that done. You know what I mean? It's like you deserve to fucking die on the table because you're a fucking moron. Because I'm telling you, I
will never
watched
smoke a cigarette again unless, like, if they say to me, you got 3 days to live, I may go buy a fucking pack of cigarettes. But it's been a long time. I'm never going to smoke again. When I drink sometimes, like, which is not often, if I have a couple of drinks, sometimes I'm like, that cigarette looks pretty good. I just don't go that route because I remember how addictive it was. And I remember it was just like, you know, it became something that I remember going to shows, you know, you would just, everyone would be smoking. You just, you know, the whole fucking club was filled with smoke.
Oh,
you
dude.
know. Bands started hating that. I remember when they started, like, you would see some bands would come there and be like, this is a non-smoking event. You know, I started seeing that more often.
Well, for me, like when I first started getting, you know, when the doctors kept saying, oh, you got asthma, you know, back when I had my polyps, and it would fuck me up, like all that smoke. And then I would have to go up there and try to sing. And there were some clubs, you know, in South America where, I mean, it looked like fucking LA on the worst fucking time of the year with the smog. I mean, those clubs were so bad. And I would be like, man, I don't know if I could do this shit. Because you're breathing in secondhand smoke. That's worse than the initial smoke. You know what I mean? Because, you know, whether, it's got a filter. I don't give a shit about the filter, but you're blowing out fucking disgusting smoke. And then somebody just standing there like holding a cigarette while it's burning for an hour. Yeah, fuck out of here, man. No.
Yeah, it's been, like I said, I don't hear, I mean, you know, it's funny here, the actual cigarette packs are kind of like grindcore death metal album covers. Like, you know, it's not like pretty colors. It's like a picture of like a corpse or like someone's lungs hanging out their asshole or something like that. It's like,
they got warning things all over them.
Warnings, yeah, like charcoal this, and it's just like, so I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I don't get how they can sell that, but it's still, because where I'm at, weed's not legal. You know, it's not like when I'm in St. Pete, obviously you could go to the dispensary and grab what you want, which is great, I think, because there's no reason it shouldn't be legal, in my opinion. Of course, you need to do other shit. You can't just sit around all day and get high and not be productive, because that's just a fucking joke. Yeah. But I mean, here it's still not legal, but cigarettes are still legal. Drinking is, I mean, you go to stores here, people like to drink here, obviously. I think it's because of the winter. You know, it's so cold that you're pretty much inside all the time. So, but like, you know, it's one of those things. But yeah, weed is not legal here. So yeah, I mean, but you know, it's just eventually it will be. I think in like 20 years or so. And I know other countries, like tomorrow I'm going to Riga, Latvia. So we're going, which is like 3 hours from where we live in Lithuania. So we're gonna head over to Latvia tomorrow for 2 days. You know, take the kids there. I've actually never been there, and that's the one cool thing about living here is like we went to Poland last month. You know, into Warsaw. So you could kind of just, it's like states, right? You just jump in states. You go to Poland, you go to Latvia, you go, you know, it's just one of those deals. So, but it's not legal there. I know Amsterdam, it's legal. Yeah. So, and I have, you know, that's actually, I plan to go there hopefully this year. I have not gone there yet with obviously, you know, with the kids and just traveling back and forth to the States and stuff like that. And, you know, which I have to come back to the States. I mean, I was just talking to my wife about this. We're trying to figure out, like, you know, I mean, I haven't even played a show. Like, we did like our band, Generic Christ, we haven't done shit with in a while, man. You know, it's like, I need to get back to that a little bit. There's a couple things I need to get back to, and I miss playing. And, you know, you do miss Florida after being away for a while, you know, but I got to say, it's totally cool here, too.
I don't.
You know, well, yeah, you're, you know,
I don't.
You're there. You don't leave there for now. You know, you do when you go on tour, but
yeah. Well, I see memes all the time where guys. I just watched one a little while ago. The guy walks out. He goes, "We got to go get some fucking dog food. Are you serious?" And he opens the door. He goes, "What the fuck?" And then all of a sudden she walks out, and they're like, "Oh my god, open the car door, hurry!" And she's like, "I'm trying." And they get in there.
It's so hot. Is that what?
And they put the fucking seatbelt on, and then they start screaming because it's so fucking hot, you know, in the car. And then, you know, the end of it, he's sitting over there and you see him and he's pissing water like he's drenched. Like, remember the old Airplane movie where it was just, and then they look at her and he starts screaming and she looks like she's got corpse paint on from her, you know, the sweat running, and it made like fucking Gene Simmons fucking, you know, markings on her face. I was like, yeah, that pretty much sums Florida up in about a 30-second commercial. Cause dude, I can literally walk out of the shower, be great, walk to the car, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? What just happened? Seriously?
Yeah, I remember that.
Dude,
like,
it's brutal.
It's
fucking brutal. Dude, I've been working on my car the last couple days, and there was a time, I think it was Sunday, I came inside and it was cool. And when I went back outside, I started to get that tingles where you start to feel like maybe I shouldn't go back outside because I was so dehydrated from being outside in the heat. Not even so much in the sun, just being under the car in the fucking heat, continuous for a couple hours. It's like, man.
And what's your average temperature been this last week? So like 97,
98, 99.
I hear the
feel like's over 100.
6.
Yeah, the feel like, but it's been anywhere between 97 and 99, man. It's been, you know, like I got in my truck today after fucking being soaked working outside, and I'm just like, really? Because it felt like I walked into a fucking oven, you know, when you get in the car for the first time. And I'm like, you know, this is fucking ridiculous, man. But you know what'll happen in 2 months? It's going to cool down. I mean, for you, it's going to become fucking like an Arctic,
for sure.
like an Arctic Circle. But here, you know, it'll come in waves for us. But then people are going to bitch how cold it is. And I'm like, that's one thing you won't hear. Like, when we went to Europe, that was the first time in a long time that I had felt cold. You know what I mean? Like,
I told you too. I said, dude, it's, you know, you forget. I forgot. Like, being from Jersey, you grew up freezing your balls off.
Yeah, but me and Mark,
Florida,
you know, we were walking a mile each way in that weather to find a gym. You know what I mean? So there were times where we were fucking walking, freezing, going, okay, how long is 6 fucking kilometers, you fucking assholes? Come to find out it's not 6 kilometers. It's actually over a mile when you convert it. And I'm like, you motherfuckers. But you know what? You can always add layers. You can't walk around naked. So that's the difference between Florida and where you live. You can put on a coat. Me walking around in the front yard with, you know, no clothes on, probably your neighbors probably aren't going to be too happy.
There's an album cover for you. You know, there's definitely an album cover for you.
Please join the OnlyFans page.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, I totally get it. And that's I remember when we flew back last year, when we flew back to Florida, we like came from like, it was like, I think when we left here, it was, I always think it's Celsius now. See, I'm in that mindset. It was probably like 22 Fahrenheit. And I got on the plane, got to Florida where it was like 85 when we landed. And you have to like bring a change of clothes in the middle of the plane, you know, all that bullshit, man. It's just the way it goes, though. You just get used to it. But you never, I don't like being cold, but I really hate being like disgustingly hot. So,
right,
you know.
Right.
But the summers here are nice.
I remember Justin, our guitar player, he was wearing shorts, and we went to Chicago, oddly enough. And then flew from Chicago to, I think it was Norway. But I remember getting off the fucking plane, and it was nighttime. And when you get off and there's that little gap in the fucking in the bridge, and I was like, holy fuck. It was so cold. Because, we're talking, Norway's cold.
Oh, yes.
And,
Yes.
I believe it was Norway we flew into. I can't remember. But wherever it was one of the black metal havens. And it was fucking... I mean, there was an Arctic chill that came through that little hole. I mean, we're talking a little gap about a fucking half a foot wide. And I looked at him and I'm like, dude, you're in shorts. He's like, yeah, no, I'm going to be changing as soon as we get into the fucking airport. But yeah, it was cold, man. But that's
and I think when you're in Florida, what do they say? Your blood thins out, and that's pretty much.
Oh yeah.
I mean, when I first moved to Florida, it was definitely besides I had never seen palmetto bugs and all this shit, so it was definitely a little shocking for me. But the heat was definitely shocking. But it's definitely getting warmer out. That's one thing. No matter what's going on, it's definitely getting a little warmer out. And I even, like we were talking about storms earlier, I was like, man, this storm season might really suck.
It went from nothing to they're popping up everywhere. A lot of them just dissipate and do nothing. But the last week, there's been a few that were like, holy shit, man, we might catch one soon.
Already, I know.
That's why I didn't build shit, because I'm building a cold plunge outside so that, I can fucking just freeze my nuts off without having it to be winter. And I'm thinking, man, I don't want to build all this stuff. And then all of a sudden a hurricane comes and then I got to take it all down and move it so it doesn't get destroyed. Because I bought a chiller, instead of putting ice bags inside of the tub, I bought an actual machine to cool the water. It's called a chiller. It's like for aquariums to cool the water. And I'm like, I don't want to set all this stuff up. And then
that fucking blows down the street.
Like literally, man, like a week later, it's, hey, get your shit. And I'm like, oh man. So now I'm fucking, you know what I mean? But that's Florida life, man. Gators, sharks, and fucking, intense heat.
That is Florida life. Totally. And yeah, man, I don't know. So I guess I think we're going to call it a night. I got to head to on a journey tomorrow with the family, and anything else going on, Ed, that you want to mention before we bail?
Yeah, just don't get on a plane with anybody from the Wagner group.
Yeah,
don't do
right,
it.
Man.
Don't do it.
Surprise. I'm surprised it took 2 months for that. I mean, you knew it was going to happen. It's just a total shit show.
No offense, but if you think that just happened,
by mistake, yeah.
I got some swampland for you to buy out here in Florida.
Yeah, he was a bad seed too. So it's just
absolutely
bad seed killing a bad seed, and just it's the way it rolls. I guess it sucks that the world is so fucking nuts now, but it is. But
safe travels.
Safe travels, yeah. And, we appreciate everybody listening. We're going to have some more guests coming up. We're just getting set up still on the show. We actually have a logo that's getting worked on from, Ipiot, who we mentioned earlier, from 5 milligrams, if I'm saying that correct, Ipiot. If not, it's Ed's fault. But, yeah, he's doing that for us for the show. So we'll have that. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to get, hopefully we get some artists on here too. I know tonight we were talking a lot about like album covers and stuff, and I definitely, want to try to get some of these guys to come on the show. And, because I think that a lot of times, especially these days, maybe back in the day we're the liner note readers, as we all were, paid more attention to those details of who the artist was and stuff. But, it's a cool thing. And some of these guys, like we remember the Seagrave and stuff, they've done so much stuff that, it's just cool when you actually look at even that, especially when some of it varies and stuff, it's the same artist, but just different little bit of vary for the band, and stuff like that. So we'll get to that. We're going to have the logo, like I said, and we're going to have just a shit more stuff. We'll talk to you guys very soon. And Ed, I hope you have a good weekend,
Yep. No working on the truck. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's that's a big thing, right? I mean, because you got what did you just replace in that thing?
The fuel pump. You got to pull the whole gas tank out of that fucking thing. So yeah, that was a nightmare.
Yes, definitely.
But I like my money, so I'll just do it myself.
Exactly. I wish I would have went to auto shop. I did not. I was too busy trying to figure out where girls were in home ec and shit, I guess. I don't know. But I wish I would have paid attention a little bit more. But we want to thank you from the Tampa Morgue Show.
Absolutely.
And
thank you.
We appreciate you listening. Oh, here we go with the background music. But we're actually going to play, on the way out tonight, we're actually going to play an old demo from a band called Ex Mortis. Every episode, every couple episodes, we're going to play some old demos, tracks that, you probably haven't heard or you may have heard, or, but this is from the Descent into Chaos demo. It is Lords of Abomination. And we appreciate everything for everybody who listens, and enjoy.